Welcome to WVTC TV Network, capturing family moments in real time, bringing families closer together from the comforts of home. We are unleashing something different to the world. Start your subscription today for the low price of $4.99 per month or $55 annually. Go to www.wvtctvnetwork.com to sign up today. WVTC TV Network is streaming live on 8 different platforms. You can easily download the WVTC TV Network app on the Apple Store, Play Store, Roku, Fire TV, and more. Here at WVTC TV, we have access to movies that everyone can enjoy, including independent films, Sons of a Preacher and a Good Thing, Treasures of Life, the epic drama, The Passion of the Christ, and the box office hit Madagascar Escape to Africa. Remember, go to www.wvtctvnetwork.com and sign up today.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to You Plant, We Water, where we combine faith, mental health, and thriving relationships. So I am your co-host, Dr. Toy Flowers, licensed professional counselor and professor of counseling. And I have my favorite hostess with the mostest.
Hi, everybody. I'm Trisha. I'm a minister and a life coach.
Yes. And we just so happen to be sisters. Flower power. We used to didn't like that as kids, but we do. We're owning it. We're taking that back. But again, welcome to You Plant, We Water. And again, we are here to just try to help each and every one of us have the thriving relationship that you deserve. But more importantly, combining that with our faith and spirituality for your overall wellness, your overall mental health and wellness. So we got a couple of things we're going to talk about today. One, we're going to start with a bit of a hot topic, and then we're going to transition into talking about stress and the impact that it can have on our relationships. But as far as our hot topic, should I introduce it or do you want to do it?
You do it.
I'll do it. So, as you know, or maybe you don't know, but apparently relationship podcasts and shows they're booming, right? There's money there. So everyone is doing it. Not just people who, necessarily have credentials or things like that, but just getting into that space because it seems to be profitable. So there was an interesting show. I don't remember the name, Hardly Initiated. And they had 2 relationship, I hate to use the word gurus, but internet gurus, right? Tony Gaskins, who is married and Christian and provides relationship advice. And then Ace Metaphor, who I know is single. I don't know if he makes it clear whether or not he is a believer or not. But the hot topic was, who is qualified to give relationship advice, right? Should single people give relationship or marriage advice? Should married people help singles? Should people who are struggling in their own relationships give advice? So on and so forth. Now, what I will say, me personally, I have watched Tony Gaskins on multiple occasions, and I really do like a lot of what he says. He stands firm on the word, and he's no nonsense, and I appreciate that because a lot of people are in this just to make a buck. So, and a lot has uh, Ace Metaphor is just having a hard time. We'll just say that. People in his camp and things like that are starting to share some things. What was that, Cat Williams? The Year of Reckoning, right? So he's going through a little reckoning of his own. But we thought that was a pretty interesting topic because they went, back and forth. Who did you think won, for lack of a better word?
So I don't think it was a winner, but I do feel like one had more backing on their knowledge, right? So one was able to give sources of why they felt the way they felt, and the other one was, in my opinion, just giving opinions. And so if you're asking for relationship advice, you don't necessarily just want my personal opinion. You would like for me to have some sort of a backing behind it, right?
Yeah.
And so if I'm telling Toya, hey, you shouldn't do that. And then she says, well, why? And I say, well, because I said so. Well, that's not really giving you any real stability, real information. So that creates, Tony said that creates confusion. And so I was in agreement with him on that. A lot of times when we are talking about internet relationships or people gurus and all of that, there's a lot of misinformation. And so people are not getting sound information.
Yes. Oh, yes. There's so much out there that is completely wrong. I'm just going to say that, and irrelevant. So I like what you're saying about he had more backing. I like that. In my humble opinion, you're not going to go wrong if you're standing on the word, and he stood on the word of God. Now, to that point, this other person isn't saying they're a Christian or a believer, so that's neither here nor there. But they, sometimes there's some spicy relationship information. So to that point, do you think someone who's single can give relationship advice?
So I do feel like you can give relationship advice. I don't think if you're not married, you should not be giving marriage advice to someone because you've never experienced that. So I'm not saying that you can't talk about marriage and the ideas of marriage, but I can't speak to the longevity or what you should be doing or how you should be doing it because that's out of my tool house, which is something we spoke about earlier with a lot of things that people are doing. If it's out of your tool house, then you can't speak on it. So being a minister, we spoke about this earlier, there's certain things that I can't say because that's not my skill set. Well, I could say, but it's not my skill set, so I shouldn't say.
Yeah, that's a great point. Now, what I will say, as you're trying to, out there, our audience, if you're trying to decipher whose advice to take and things like that, to Trisha's point earlier, when people are speaking from their experiences, then they have to have experienced it. If you're ever hearing from someone who is a licensed professional, they don't have to experience each thing because they have received actual training on how to address various issues. In fact, I often tell my students, you don't have to have been abused or sexually assaulted to work with a client who has, because we've trained you and taught you how to do that work. So that part is true. However, internet gurus and things like that, their fame, their thing, it's not based on having been formally trained, and it is based off of experience. And so I think it is helpful to quote unquote stay in your lane. And to that point, though, do you think someone who's been married, I don't know, 15, 20 years should be giving advice on the dating scene?
I'll speak to that person. again, I think that you can give advice, but I think that you also have to preference preface that with you're a little out of touch, right? So there are things that are different that from 15 years ago. So like online dating wasn't a thing. So why would you be talking about something that you have no experience with? So if a person says, the gentleman comes in and says, it's been really tough, I haven't been able to connect. How would you know how to connect on online when that's not been something that you've experienced?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that both people need to be careful in what it is that they're saying, because again, if you're not trained in this, then it's just your opinion. It's a very follow-based opinion, but
Right.
it's still just an opinion. And sometimes the internet can be very confusing because we think of these people as trained, and they're not.
Right.
That's the part that's misleading, right? So it's like, well, such and such said that we should do this. And then you come to find out that such and such is not even doing what they told you to do. So that's the part that I'd like to stress in this topic. Be mindful of the information that you guys are receiving and listening to, because sometimes it's a tactic to get followers.
Yes, yes, yes. Right. So having that spirit of discernment, right? So we just wanted to talk to you a little bit about that, and that's going to transition us into our next piece, because it's been a pretty stressful time for some of these influencers. There's a lot, coming out, and it's been a stressful time for a lot of people in general. We've got everything that's happening politically and all the changes in the world. And so we're going to just talk a little bit about how stress impacts our relationships and what can we do about it. So, having said that, what do you think, Trisha? What are your thoughts on how stress can impact your relationship?
It is challenging, right? So when stress happens, we don't have the right tools. Sometimes we can be combative with our partner. We can be moody. We can be overwhelmed. These are a lot of things. Stress is such a huge topic. So
Yes,
it's not
it is.
just one, like, well, this is stress. Like lots of people deal with it differently. And so even now in the world, stress can be a good thing, stress can be a bad thing. It just depends. And so we're all feeling a difference. And that's because we have a new way of thinking, a new way of doing things that is happening and transpiring, which happens in relationships. So
Yeah.
it can be difficult.
Yes. I know for me personally, even though, I've got all this training and things like that, stress definitely impacts my relationships, because when I'm under stress, I have less patience, right? I could be more irritable. I could be more short-sighted, right? And it's not just my couple relationship, it could be with my kids. And think about a small stressor. Like, I know Trisha's going to resonate with this because we've been dealing with this pretty much all of our lives, and we all struggle with it in my family. Losing your keys, right? We will lose our keys, and we are upset with everybody in the house, right? Like, where are my? Even though we lost them personally, but we're like, where are my keys? And from there, it's just like, and you didn't put your dishes away, and da 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 da. Right? That's what stress. It can be something that can spill out into your relationship. Now, if you have a strong foundation and you're able to recognize when your partner is feeling stressed, you can be a support, right? But it's so crucial that you are able to manage your own emotions, we call it emotional regulation. You got to stay right here as they elevate. And that's not easy to do. Trust me. When I'm in my petty spirit, I like to say, I'll match your energy. Like, you want to go? We could go. But that's not what you want to do. You want to try to stay here. So it definitely will impact your relationship. And as Trisha, you were saying, we're all under a lot of stress now. That's just the bottom line. Regardless of what you have going on personally, the nation, right? We're in a time of stress. And so it's going to make things more intense for everyone. So we want to give you some suggestions and things that you can do to help mitigate that. Any thoughts before I start saying some things about stress?
Yes, I want to say good evening. We appreciate you guys tuning in. And just to piggyback off what she said, we're also feeling stressed from all of the crashes with the planes. And so things that used to just be kind of smooth, you're a little uneasy about now. So we're like, what do we do now? How do we cope? And so that can, again, you're not aware of it, but that could also be going into your relationships where you're feeling a little anxious, a little tension. So
Yeah,
just wanted
sure.
to piggyback off of what you said.
No, I love it for sure. Right. It's an interesting time. So, dealing with stress is an individual and how it plays out in your couple relationship. It's nothing new as far as, you know, anything. It's nothing new as far as counseling is concerned or even just common sense, right? But like I said, what makes it challenging is it very, very difficult to stay level when someone else is elevated, right? And what we call that is in counseling, I don't want to drop big words, but it's called enmeshment, right? And what that means is when somebody that you're close to is experiencing a certain emotion, it's almost like being on a roller coaster where wherever they go, you going too, right? You can't get off of this roller coaster with them. So they're stressed, you stress, right? And what we want to work on is something they call differentiation, where that loved one can be feeling that stress and you're here, right? Like an anchor. They're going there. You can't stop anyone from experiencing anything, but it doesn't mean you have to get on board, right? And so what's beautiful about a romantic couple relationship is it actually can help alleviate stress. And there's something that we teach people to do called the stress reducing conversation, where you can be a help to each other. And I'm not going to give you all of it. I'm just going to give you a little bit of it off the top of my head. But if you were in counseling, we would actually practice this in session. But what you want to do, one, is listen. Now that sounds easy, but it's not.
At all.
Right? You want to listen. Listen for understanding. You're not listening to solve the problem. You're not listening to prove your point. You're not listening just to get it done. Like you're just listening for understanding. So you're just listening. That's one. Second, you want to demonstrate that you're listening by being able to repeat something back to your partner, right? So not like a parrot, not like, you said this, so I'm going to say that. Not that kind of thing. But if someone's talking, what was the gist of what you heard? So you'll repeat that. And then you want to try to have empathy, right? And by empathy, what that means is imagining what is it like for your partner right now. Try to put yourself in their shoes. After you've done that, the biggest piece of the stress reducing conversation is regardless of whatever it is that is causing them stress, when you're doing this exercise, you take their side. I know, right? Because what we want to do is be like, well, you know what you could have did or you should have said, but during this stress, you're on their side. It doesn't mean that if they're wrong, what do I say? It's not like if they're wrong that you sugarcoat that they're wrong, but this isn't that moment, right? So I'll give you an example in a minute, but you're going to take their side and then you're going to become a team. Like you're going to attack it together. And I mentioned this word before. I have to be careful with it. We-ness. We-ness, right? You want to tap into your we-ness like we're a team. So here's an example. Let's see. Well, we can practice it. You want to give me something that's stressful? I'll be the partner that's trying to help you reduce stress. It doesn't have to be real. You can make something up.
It'll probably be real. What's stressing me out is getting my daughter to band camp at 7 a.m. when I'm not a morning person. And so this new skill set that she's learning is creating stress for me because I must get up.
Yeah, I hear you, right? So now you're having to be up early in the morning. You're not a morning person because you're trying to show support.
Was that the weenus?
That was the listen and then try to sum it up, right? Okay. So, and then you wouldn't probably naturally maybe say some more, but maybe not. And then here's the weeness, right? What I'm not gonna say is, girl, get up, like, or she's only going to be a child for so long. These are things that other people will tell you, right? And it doesn't mean they're not right, but that's not what we're doing right now. So instead, I'm just going to take your side and be like, man, I know you're probably exhausted because you stay up late. Like, you're more of a night owl. So I know it's cutting into your sleep. I'm on her side, right? And then if it were a person or something like that that were stressing you out, I might even be like, what we going to do? You want me to, like, not that you're literally going to go after them, but you've heard me say that's a jive turkey sucker fool, right? That's a little word I created to show somebody I'm on their side, right? So I could say, bang camp is a jive turkey sucker fool stressing you out. So that's a stress reducing conversation. Excuse me.
So I love that. And I'm going to just step in a little bit because she's under the weather a little bit. So she's doing an amazing job with trying to give you guys what she has and pouring into you and making sure that you can hear. She really needs some water at this moment, but we're going to push through.
You plant, I need water.
We're going to push through and just know that the weeness, I didn't know that. But that's something that automatically made me feel heard, right? So that did bring down the stress in me, even though you could also bring the stress up, like you said, that you went there and told me.
Exactly.
Get over it. That's when now I'm like, get over it. What do you mean? And so that's a skill set that I'm learning to be able to, like you said, self-regulate, not to. Like she said earlier, our family has a tendency with the keys, and it can get quite out of hand.
Oh my gosh!
There could have been nobody in the house but us. And somebody break in to get my keys. That's something that we have to self-regulate on and recognize is an issue, and bringing it on back to your mate. If you're aware that you're a key loser. When you lose your keys, this is something that you could probably bring up beforehand so that they know to back up, because that's also for me. It's not just the stress of losing my keys. It's when I now found that I don't think you're looking for them good enough with me. That even though I'm the one who lost them, I'm like, well, what are you doing over there? If you allow your mate to know this, they can back up, right? They can kind of disappear because they already know this is going to be a little crazy. So let's just back up out of this conversation and let's create our weakness by saying, what can I do to support you? What can we do together? Can we retrace our steps to find your keys? Which has really helped me before.
Yes,
it did calm me down.
Yes. I've resolved the key issue myself. I put them in the same place every time, but still somehow I lose them in my purse. But anywho, we digress. Absolutely, right? So the point of the stress reducing conversation as well, though, is not to wait until you're upset, right? The stress reducing conversation is something you can have every night, right? You could check in every night. And just be like, how was your day? Right. And keep these skills in mind. And when they say, oh, this is really stressed me out or whatever, what you don't want to do is have a competition, right? Like, well, you think your day was stressful. Listen to what happened to me. You're going to take turns talking. So I only did it one-sided, but then after you felt heard, then you would do it for me. And I would be like, okay, if I had stress, right? I may not have had any. But it's something that if you start practicing it now, you'll find that it really can help. There's something about knowing somebody is on your side, right? You're not in it alone. They got your back. That can really help bring things down. Now, I want to say, because I know people are thinking about, well, what if your partner really is wrong, right? There's another time to talk about that. It's just not during this conversation. Like, you all would know this is our stress reducing conversation, blah, blah, blah. And then later, some other time, you all might have problem solving and things like that. And that's when you might share like, hey, have you tried this? Or, Do you think you could have approached it a little bit different? Or do you think blah, blah, blah? But during this conversation, you're just on each other's side, because that's important, more than you would know, right? Even more than problem solving. You never have to solve it. I know we think so, like, I got to fix it for you. Even like finding the keys. You don't have to find the keys. You just have to be there to support. So that is the stress. And stress buildup is dangerous. It is dangerous, right? It's dangerous. It's dangerous in your relationship. It's physically dangerous for your health, right? So having a way to reduce the stress is just great. Any tools you can have. You have a thought?
One of the things so when we're doing, I'm going to say stress management, right?
Love it.
When we're doing our stress management and we're doing our weakness, and the urge comes in for you to want to tell your mate or your child or whomever that they're wrong. How do we not do that? How do we stop ourselves from saying, well, you did kind of create this.
Right. That's why when I'm sharing this as the stress reducing conversation, this has to be its own thing, right? So not something you just doing it. Like, it's kind of like, how do I explain it? We go to coffee. We have coffee on Thursdays at 10 a.m. We have a stress reducing conversation so that that's what it is. And then as the listener, I'm not going to attack. I'm not going to say what you could have did. And your partner knows they can be vulnerable and say what they really need to say without being judged. So that's the best way. Otherwise, if it's just any type of regular conversation, you probably are going to be like, well, you shouldn't. Like, a lot of times this has to do with somebody's boss or something like that. And you might be like, well, you ain't been going to work a lot. Like, you've been late all week. That might be true, as long as it's not during the stress reducing conversation, because remember, the whole point is to bring the stress down. This isn't to solve the problem, figure out what job they can get, make up with their boss. You're trying to bring their stress down. And what we do as paid professionals, we empathize. I can empathize with anyone, right? Because you're a human. I can walk in your shoes and imagine what it's like to be you and feel what you feel, whether you're right or wrong. And that's kind of the beauty of what I do with couples. I could see both sides. I could clearly know, one of them is really doing the most, but I could still empathize. And that's what the point of the stress reducing conversation is, just empathy. So I hope that helps, because that is the hard part. You do want to get in there and be like, now, that you shouldn't have, I don't know, you shouldn't have, I can't think of something that I'm trying to think of, like a real life situation. Without getting myself in trouble, because I've been having some stress, y'all, some work stress, but I can't speak freely about my work stress. But that is the key, right? So I understand that's the hard part, because we want to fix it. And honestly, I don't want to be biased, but a lot of times this is the hardest part for men, because you all are providers and protectors. You want to get in there, get it done. Like, you upset, boom, just do this. And there is a time and a place for that, but the stress reducing conversation is not that time. And as you can see, it doesn't have to take long. It could be 5 to 10 minutes at the end of the night, or whatever time works for you all.
I love that. And I think that as a country, we all need a little stress. Yes, just to bring it down. And like you said, we're not arguing or defending one side or whatever. We're just all know at this point in time, we're all stressed. And so we could all just come together and just kind of woosah, take a breather, and realize, like, okay, everybody is feeling something. And the key point that I took away from what you said was making sure that I'm not adding to that with my extraness.
Well said, sis. Well said. So we hope this helped you a little bit as you think about stress and how it impacts your relationship and what you can do. I often say in my bio for the private practice I work at, I say relationships can be the source of great joy or great pain, right? So the stress can either hinder your relationship, or your relationship can be something that helps to mitigate or heal the stress, right? Meaning that we want to work towards creating relationships that actually heal us, that help us heal, right? That aren't the problem, but they heal us. Like, I know I can come home, talk to my partner, and that I can have a release of stress and not feel like, oh no, when I get home, it's about to be on. Like, it is possible, and people do have that. So hopefully we helped you in that regard. As you know, please feel free to visit us on Facebook to share your comments. We do read them, and we will bring them to the show. And as always, you plant, we water.
Go to your Apple or Google Play Store and download the WVTC Gospel Radio app today. You can also say, Alexa, play WVTC Radio Skills.
Would you like to play WVTC Radio Network?
Absolutely. Download it today.
Views made on the preceding program are not those of WVTC Radio, iNetworks Communications, or their financial supporters.
Winning victory through Christ, WVTC Allsip Chicago, and iNetworks Communication Station.